Hi everyone. Hope you can hear me. Uh, we'll share my screen. Okay. Um, can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so for the assignment from 2 weeks ago, for the audio classification fine-tuning example, I decided to take the code from the audio classification tutorial on Hugging Face. And so this tutorial basically takes a wave 2vec2 underlying model and then fine tunes it on the Minds 14 dataset. And then it basically will, and we'll basically go through all this code later, but it fine tunes it to classify um, like the audio files by these labels that are from the original data set. I didn't really go too far into like what the original Minds 14 data set actually is, but it seems to be like some kind of like speech data set that exists. And like it seems as though most of the underlying like audio classification models are for speech recognition, both in terms of figuring out what people are saying, but then also in terms of like um, trying to classify the tonality of like how they're saying something, whether they're happy or sad or whatever, which I thought was interesting, but it's not really very applicable to um, birds and dogs. So I found a different data set called the ESC50 data set. Uh, um, And I think that this is actually, so the ESC50 dataset has like a bunch of different like ambient noises. So like dogs and birds and vacuum cleaners and thunderstorms and so on and so forth. And they apparently had like some sort of competition a little bit of a while back to classify the different things. Now, for our assignment, we just wanted like dogs and chirping birds. So I basically dumped the rest of the files here, but there's also another data set that I found on Kaggle for chirping birds. And so it was to kind of differentiate between like different bird songs, I think. And I think if anybody were to continue on with like this particular, like using online data sets and as opposed to like collecting your own data, that Kaggle data set might be a good addendum to like what exists like in this ESC50 data set. So yeah, so basically all the boilerplate code is the same. The only thing that I changed is like how I load the data set in particular, um, which is pretty straightforward, I think. So I already started it by like preloading the data. If I actually had it cached, so it didn't take very long, but like if you don't have it cached, it takes like a minute or two. So yeah, so dog barking and bird chirping. And then we can pull the data from the data set and split it with like the train and test data set. And then as we see, there are like a few different um, columns which we don't necessarily need, like target and ESC 10 is I think like the previous data set classification or something like that, or if it like showed up in the previous data set. And what the source file is. So like this data set that exists on Hugging Face has the audio attached to the data itself, but like the original data set on GitHub has like a file name for like where the source is. So I kept the source file, but also included the audio in the data set here. Um, we don't really need all of that. We only need the category, which is like the label that exists. So like dog or chirping birds. And then we need the audio columns. So I just dropped the rest of them. Um, so yeah, so um, that might take a little bit of time to run. Um, and so now we can take a look at what it is. And then, yeah, so we also select only for dogs and chirping birds. And the output is actually that the data set is pretty small. Like we get 68 in like the training set and like 12 in the test set, which is like kind of tiny, but at the same time, like we're fine tuning the data. We're not necessarily training it from scratch. So I found that it still worked. It's just like not very confident in its scores. So yeah, and so you can kind of like look at a sample row. So what like it has an array that represents like I guess the frequencies at like every sample step, and then it gives you like the sampling rate as part of that, and then the category. And we've cast or the categories already are in. Oh yeah, and then like the last line here encodes the categories is like 1 and 0. So instead of having the labels as a string, you want to have it in terms of like a label number. And then that is recovered essentially in this section where you can kind of like pull it from like the features names. And then this like particular thing is like generated when you do the class encoding here. And yeah, and then this kind of like shows you like that label 1 is equal to dog. And so you just kind of like pull the feature extractor from Hugging Face's database. And then now we're going to kind of encode all the data. And yeah, so first of all, we're going to cast the columns into like a sampling rate of 16,000, which is like what wave 2 vac2's sampling. Oh, this should not say that, but like what wave 2 vac2 is originally trained in. So yeah, so now we like encode it using the encoder for wave 2 vac2. And then we pull in the evaluator as well. This basically is all from the tutorial. And so here we also like tell the model that we have the labels to ID and like the ID to label so that it doesn't get confused as to like what the original labels are in association with like the labels that we've given it. Yeah, the one thing, so this is all the same. Like the one thing that I did change is that I don't want to push it to the hub because I didn't make an account. And then the other thing is that I'm running on a Mac, and it's helpful to like have it be cast into like the Mac shaders so that it runs faster for me. But like you can kind of just take this off or like cast it to CUDA if you wanted to. So just change this line. Yeah, and then it takes a little bit of time to train. Yeah, and like the eval accuracy is like jumping up like crazy.
Even on this small data set.
Yeah.
Shows that you don't need big data.
No, actually, yeah. So like the first time that I ran this, I got a 72% accuracy, which is like not perfect, but it's like less than 100 data points. So it's better than guessing one way or the other. Oh, I haven't. Yeah. But yeah, you could just kind of like do the same thing here. I think like the process for pulling in the data, because I did this like straight from Hugging Face is like a little bit more complicated, but like this data sets what is it called, library has like a bunch of like options to like put in like your own data and stuff like that, so it's not too complicated. It's just like a few extra code blocks.
Chirping spent almost a few weeks scouring the web for birds and
Really? So like the yeah, so like I was just here, let me check. Okay, because like Kaggle does have like a bird song data set. So it's not like barking dogs, but like you do have like other data sets that exist. And this is like 240 recordings, but there are like more recordings like this if you wanted to. I think it might be like the tropical bird or whatever.
dog he felt was
Yeah. I was thinking that in my household it's easy to get like dog barking data. He barks every 10 minutes, but like but yeah, there are birdsong data sets out there. I also think it would be interesting to look into Yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm not sure like where you would get like dog barking, but it might be worthwhile to see if there are like background noise data sets for like that are pulled from other types of media to see like if it has like dog barking like in like a TV show or whatever labeled. Um, but yeah. And so here, after you're finished training, you can save like your model locally. And then that's how I ended up using it here, but I didn't submit it to the website because like these models are a little bit too big.
Your actual training?
Uh, yeah, 83%. So yeah, so it's not perfect. Like I would prefer something over 90%, but it's good enough and it's better than guessing. So yeah, so I just pulled the first entry from like the sounds test uh audio. And then let's see. So yeah, when we run it here, it gives us chirping birds as like a 51% confidence, which is like just kind of, it's not super confident about that. I didn't play it. But I did somewhere here, I think I did spit out the original. Okay, this is the predicted one. But if we go to uh, yeah, so this one is chirping birds because as we saw earlier, the where is it? Yeah, so as I saw earlier here, label 1 corresponds to dogs. So label 0 corresponds to chirping birds. And what we get here is that the original data point is 0, so that means that it's chirping birds. So it got the right answer, just not very confident, and it kind of only has like an 80% accuracy. So yeah, sure. Well, in this case, it's also saying dog, or it's saying dog this time. Um, but it's giving us. Oh, no, no, no. Wait.
Oh, no, the previous cell you have to change because I still see a 0.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah. So it's saying dog, but the original data is actually a chirping bird. Yeah. But at the same time, if we look at like the scores that are given here, it's like less than 1. Yeah. So yeah, it would be interesting to know kind of like if we had more data, then we would be able to kind of make sure that it's fine-tuned a little better. But
I'll post Chirping's data set.
sure, yeah.
Yes, from quite some time.
So yeah, so it's a pretty simple thing, and it runs like actually genuinely pretty fast. So for the other one that I did, I also did like the images one. It took a lot longer, but I had like 10,000 training points like for the fine tuning, so it took me like 20 minutes or something to run through it. Yeah, sure.
That's a trees one.
Yeah, but I actually couldn't find images of trees. It turned out that the images that I had were of tree cells, but it had more than a 90% accuracy. So it did work. um, yeah, I'll just talk through this one because it actually did take quite a long time to train it. Um, so yeah, this one uses um so yeah, it's like based on like another tutorial from the same So like under transformers, you can see like a few task guides, and this one's like image classification under computer vision. The last one that we did was audio classification under audio. So you can look through here and like pull it up on Google Colab if you want to. Yeah, so that should go here. I pulled in the stomata dataset, which I guess is a bunch of images of like cells, as evidenced by this picture that I got here. I thought it was gonna be of like leaves, but I don't know much about biology, so to me it's all kind of the same. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, so it kind of goes through like a very similar process of like the data has like a bunch of or it has like a couple of other columns to it that I'm not really interested in, like the scientific name of like the tree and so on and so forth. I chose like the species name as like the label in this case, and so it has like a bunch of species names like American holly, American elm, ash, black gum, and so on and so forth. And then yeah, here we have like the conversion between like the labels and the original names. And then I took the image processor, like again, this is from like the tutorial to embed the images. And then like the evaluation is again very similar, but the data set in this case is quite large. And so how long did this take me to run? This took like quite some time. Like, yeah. So that's like, I think the number of seconds that it took me to run, and it took forever. However, the final, like the eval accuracy that I was getting towards the end is like 93%. So it actually worked pretty well. And then in this case, like this is like the cell image that I was using as my test case. And then it has like a couple of labels for like the most likely ones. I think that this one is kind of omitting ones that are like below a certain like percentage threshold. But it was fairly confident that it was Nuttall oak. And yeah, that's like what it predicted. And because this isn't running, I'm not gonna like try to pull up some other info about it. But yeah, so this is just kind of like a summary of what I did for the other assignment. So yeah.
So this is identifying species of the tree by looking at stomata.
I thought it was just tree data. I didn't really care. Thanks.
Will the accuracy precision will improve, or is there a flat line?
Yeah.
Also depends on the underlying model itself, because that one also is trained on like certain frequency.
Yeah, see what happens is most of them take about something 44 and some, I think 44 kilohertz.
44.1, I think.
Yeah, 44 kilohertz. Most of this, Whisper, everything, most of the audio world that treats that as the default for model training. So you can always convert upsample, downsample.
44.1, CD 48, DVD 96.
There you go. Yeah. So you remember this time.
I'm
Nice.
into video production too.
Yeah, you know this now.
I memorized all this.
Yeah. So you just have to upscale, downscale to that.
But if I go like, really high grade raw audio, understand? So will that improve my accuracy?
See, in this particular case, right, with large data set, because people are doing it on whale sounds, what they have found is that more data helps better, because 44 kilohertz is very high sampling rate. And you, as far as, see, the human ear may detect something, but the machine doesn't need any higher.
Any higher. Yeah. So they are very sensitive. Yeah? So Fourier transformation won't make much difference.
I don't think so.
With the lossless and MP3, yeah?
Yeah, because I've heard a specialist talk about it once, and he says you don't get much.
What if you were to do like a smart downsampling? Like you have those methodologies in computer vision where you use like a normal distribution to
That's right.
simulate the
That's
downsampling. In that case,
No, if you take very high resolution sound and then down sample to 44K, I think that may give you better results. But just training a model on extremely high fidelity sound may not. I mean, I hear that it doesn't give you all that much. But more data helps you a lot. So I heard.
Maybe,
but she has a point that you can start with a higher risk and intelligently downscale.
Train on lossless audio, then it will maybe go into overfitting territory.
No, also think about the compute time.
Compute time, yeah, of course. We don't have that.
You have to pre-train a model. You need millions of samples.
So when we convert into Fourier transformation, so that image won't be much difference, right?
That is.
But maybe some subtle differences.
Yeah. No, I think the word to wet does not do the melt spectrogram, the Fourier. Does it? I don't think so.
no, so like
How do you train like without converting to melt?
So there are multiple ways. Some like you can treat it literally in the wave, in the time domain, or you can do it in
sine wave, just like that?
Yeah, I think so. So there, I'll have to look into this. I haven't looked into wave to wet, but the other approach, of course, is to make a melt spectrogram, which is the one that Shotek took. He created melt spectrogram and did it with that. But this is new thing. I didn't know that.
I also think that in this case it works because it's essentially still a sequence, and so if you treat it as like a sequence data point, then it should be fine. But it could be interesting to know like whether the Mel spectrogram classification is like better or worse than listen for what.
Yeah, we can look up that notebook he has already posted, so we should check that out. So we have two. It's good that you did it this way because now we have two good solutions. All right, guys, I hope it inspires you to create your own solutions. Would you like to give it a try or should we just post the solution?
Go to the tutorial and scrape all the information I did.
Yeah. Anyway, Michelle, please send that. Please send that Jupyter notebook anyway, because you have already fixed the data and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I posted it onto the assignment on the website.
Oh, you already? So yeah, I'll take it from there.